Hello, everybody. And today is kind of a sad day because I am taking down this 40-gallon tank to repurpose it for something else. The main purpose that this tank served for the last 3 years or so was to be my jungle fowl farm. And you can see I've pulled all the jungle fowl out, and now we have all these shrimp. Now, let me tell you the story on these shrimp. It's a pretty cool one. And all those people that say you can't mix different colors of shrimp, you'll just get all wilds. Well, watch this and you'll see differently. Years and years ago, I had my first yellow golden back line in this tank. I had it in another 20-gallon tank too. And at the same time, both tanks, they never died. They just quit breeding. And I was selling shrimp wholesale back then. And I was selling them and selling them. I was like, these guys ain't breeding back out. And eventually, I had to quit selling them. Look at that one there. So after like a year of not doing anything, I was down to like 20 shrimp, 20 yellow shrimp in here. And so I reset my 75-gallon red tank, and all the ones I didn't keep, I threw in here. And then this is also the tank where I started tossing in blue jellies to try to make my red realies. This is the tank where I originally made my red really line. But you can see here, even after like 3 or 4 years, we still have yellow shrimp popping up. Now there are wilds, but most of the wilds have some kind of yellow backstripe or yellowness to them, and there's still some even pretty good yellow shrimp in here. So in the end, we have a mix of red realies, blue jellies, lots and lots of reds, some wilds, and even some yellows still popping up. Like, even though the yellows are really, really crappy, they're still popping up yellow after all these years. Yeah, the yellows, mixing the yellows with the reds isn't the best idea because they're not really that closely related. So they will make wilds. But even after all these years. So this has been a fun tank. But it's time for it to be more productive. I only have so much space. So the tanks I do have, I need them to be as productive as possible. And my new yellow tank, my new yellow line is really good. I really like them. And so this is going to go back to being a yellow shrimp tank again. So that's what this video is going to be about. We got to catch all these plecos out, catch all the shrimp, take out all the substrate, rinse it out, because this tank, the substrate hasn't been touched. I did pull out a lot of it to fill my pot in my new project where I put all the jungle veil at. But there's all kinds of, I still have trumpet snails in here. All my other trumpet snails are gone because all my tanks where I take out the substrate and reset all the time, they kind of fade away. You need, because trumpet snails will take over tanks that have gone for years and years. There's a lot of fun shrimp in here, and they're all going to go in the Skittles tank. Lots of reds, lots of cool shrimp in here. See, there's even, like I said, there's even some like pretty decent yellows that still pop up, which is amazing to me and awesome. So let's get this started. So first thing I'm doing is getting all the old snail shells out. You could end up with a lot of dead snail shells after when the tank gets to be 5 or 6 years old. Taking out the pleco caves. I think every single one of them had a pleco or even two in them. There's the first scoop. Lots more to go. Taking down the sponge filters. Taking apart the filter, make sure everything's good. And then it's time to remove the water. All right, we caught like 90% of the shrimp, drained down all the water, and this will make catching pluckos a whole lot easier. And we do our best to get all the rest of the shrimp. See if I can do this on camera. Little buddy, you gotta go in your plucko bucket. So I'm gonna do that. Catch these guys up by hand, because they'll end up getting tangled up in the net. And then we're gonna do our best to get the rest of the shrimp. So the pluckos are going back in the tank, the little super red short fins. And this is going to be their holding bucket. Got one of my little air pumps running, USB air pump. And they'll just chill there while we work on the tank, because they're going back in it. We just got to work on getting the rest of the shrimp out. So this is how I rinse my sand, both brand new sand and old sand I'm trying to clean, like here. I just run, this is a paint stir attachment for a drill, and you just stir, let the water keep running, you just keep going until eventually, even when you stir it up, you get clear water, and then you know your sand is perfectly clear and good to use. Okay, so now we got a nice clean tank. So now we're going to get our filtration stuff set back up. Now it's time to add the rinsed off sand, the same sand that was in there. Well, I ended up making a heck of a mess on this. I dropped a bunch of sand on the floor. I tried to use it all, doing it with my hand at first, and then I started using the specimen container cup, scoop it out, and spread it out over the tank. All right, so this is something I've been doing here recently. Look at all those little baby shrimp in there from putting the sponges in there. Now I want to keep the cycle going, but I want to disinfect these sponge filters and clean them out and make sure we get any shrimp that might still be on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze these out. I'm going to get all the muck and stuff I can into this container, and this will be the same as our sponge squeezes to keep the tank cycle going. And here's the yellow tanks, and since this is the tank where we're going to get our shrimp to put in that new, or not new, but the tank we just reset, we're going to pull a bunch of moss out of here and put in a new tank. So now we've got our plucko caves and moss back in there. It's going to be a super simple shrimp breeding setup now instead of a plant farm like it had been forever. So let's start filling it up with water. Before we fill up with water, we got to put our sponges back on. Okay, so now I think the water's high enough to plug in the pump. So let's get that going again. There she goes. do that cycle thing I was talking about earlier. We have a very fine mesh shrimp net. And to make sure we don't accidentally get any baby shrimp, we're going to dump our gunk through the net. So all the sponge squeezing, because I had to sanitize the filters to make sure we didn't get any baby shrimp. So this is how I'm keeping the cycle going. I think that's probably good. Alright, so when it's filling back up, I actually seen a couple of little freaking baby shrimp that look like they might be dead, but can't tell if that's one right there or not. I think it is. So, that's rather unfortunate. So I'm going to leave this go until a couple days and look for shrimp to get out. We'll be able to know, I'll have a better idea when it clears up after doing the cycle, but first we got to catch our pleco buddies. Man, this is going to be hard catching them by hand. Come on, man. Alright. There's one. Boom. Alright, there's another one. Trick is to grab them by the tail so they don't spike you. You got me a little bit, feller. Couple of these. There used to be a whole bunch in here, and I sold a bunch. And some of them got beat up real bad and don't have tails. They got beat up when they was little and lost all or part of their tail. One more pleco left. The biggest, fastest one. Alright. Big old girl. Alright, all the plecos are back in. Figuring out how it works now. And their new remodeled home. Wouldn't be a day in the fish room without making a mess. Good grief. Alright, so here we are about an hour later. And I looked and I looked and I looked and I didn't see any baby shrimp. Now, I wanted to keep the snails, so I'm sure I killed a lot of them, even though I was intentionally trying to, they didn't get disinfected like the sponge filter did. I picked everyone I could possibly see off these sponges. Then they soaked in scalding hot water for like 15 or 20 minutes. So if there's anything on that, that's why I squeezed them out and saved the gunk from them to keep the cycle going. Because I know how these go. These sponges were covered in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shrimp at all times. So I'm sure you just can't, when you're trying to do a line, you had to make sure you disinfected it. But I didn't disinfect the sand because I wanted to keep the trumpet snails. The pluckers all seem to be happy. I see a lot of the snails still moving around. Well, the little trumpets climbed up the side of the tank. Like, I think that might be pieces of a dead shrimp. So they might be coming off the sponge filters. So I'm just going to sit here and watch this tank like a hawk for the next 3 months and pull out any shrimp that may have. I'm sure there's probably, knowing my luck, there's probably like 30 of them in there. But hopefully not. Or I will run the yellows I put in here. So I'm not going to put that many yellows in here, way less than I would have planned on doing, because I don't want to risk messing up that yellow line by taking a whole bunch of the ones I've got bred out so far. So we'll start out real small, making sure we get any shrimp survivors, this teeny tiny little clear babies that ended up making it. I showed you guys the paint mixer thing. I did that for a while and then I realized I'm trying to save snails. That's not a good idea. I did the rest of it by hand. All right, after spending, this is the next day, after spending hours and hours, I found one little teeny tiny red shrimp. So I'll continue to keep an eye on it, but now it's time to start gathering up some yellows to get this tank back to being a yellow shrimp tank like it was years and years ago. And earlier I talked about some of my pluckos getting beat up when they was little and grew up with a messed up tail. There's one of them. There's another one that doesn't even have a tail. I don't see it out and about. All right, let's catch some yellows. Just gonna do random. Nice random group of them. We're gonna start off kind of small in case there's more bad ones in that tank that we miss. But I think within keeping a close eye on them for a while, I think we'll do just fine. These yellows are pretty good. I mean, they're not like yellow fire by any stretch of the imagination, but for being this straight, I think with some effort and working them hard, they could be pretty spectacular. I think they got a lot of potential to be real good. So we're gonna. All right. So I don't want to get too many. Looks like we probably got about 20 little ones, 10, 15 adults. All right, let's get them in. Yellow shrimp back in the house. All right. Well, that does it for this shrimp keeping adventure. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.